Hey, everybody. Hi, guys. I am back to talk some singing technique and some singer's mindset with you today. And thank you to Backstage for having me back. I'm Arden Kaywin, and I am a vocal coach and singer based in Los Angeles, and also one of the singing expert columnists for Backstage. And today we have an interesting topic, and I'm really glad to see everybody here who's on with us. We're going to talk about how changing 3 words can have a really lasting effect on improving your breath support. So, breath support is something that I think a ton of singers struggle with understanding, struggle with the sensation of what it should be or what it is or what it isn't, the muscles related. And that, in my opinion, a voice teacher's number one job before all else is to teach support. But that said, the ways that we conceive of support have an effect on how we use our body. So, singing, it is an artistic endeavor, but it's also an athletic endeavor. And it's an athletic endeavor and it's also an intellectual endeavor. So it's all 3. It's artistic, it's athletic, and it's intellectual. So really it's mind and body. And where mind and body meet is where artistry is created. So when we're talking about words, right, words matter when it comes to how the mind and the body are communicating. And so the words that we choose to use to direct our vocal technique really affect what our bodies will do, for better or for worse. So the mind, the brain is part of the instrument. Your body is your instrument when you're a singer, not just this, your whole body. And so we need to incorporate the mind into that whole, because otherwise we're leaving out training the one part of this instrument that can and will sabotage everything else if it's left to its own devices. And words are the connective tissue between our understanding and our implementation. So words matter. And the words we choose are so important into how we're going to direct our body to do this thing, to sing and to create resonant sound for our performances. So today, I want to give you 3 examples of how changing one word makes a huge difference in your breath support and how the body is going to implement it with our technique. So the reasons why these 3 words that I've chosen are my top 3 for creating change and up-leveling your singing and your technique is that they foster trust. So in general, the habits that negatively affect your singing are mostly born out of a lack of trust. A lack of trust in your instrument and a lack of trust in your ability to use it the most efficiently and reliably as you need to. So without trust, we feel unmoored, we feel insecure and unable to let go. And, that's not such a great place for an artist to be, because at the end of the day, your job is to connect to an audience for that free flow of energy through your sound between you and the people who are listening. So if we are lacking trust and we feel insecure and we're not able to let go and give ourselves over to the performance, then we're not going to connect and we're not going to make the impact that we want, either in our auditions or in performance. So what we do when we feel that lack of trust and we feel unmoored and insecure, we compensate by doing things with our body, our instrument, when we sing that give us the illusion of control. But it's just an illusion. It's not actual control. And so what are these things that we do to compensate that give us this illusion of control? We push, we squeeze, we hold, we tense, we reach, we manipulate, we force, all of this, what I call make, force, do, all of that stuff, all of this trying, all of this excess control that we exert when we don't trust our body's innate ability to make resonant sound, and when we don't trust our technique to get us there, all of this excess control and this trying and doing actually ends up making us sound worse. It's a negative feedback loop. And if you have followed my content on here, then you know about this negative feedback loop. I think about 2 months ago here on Backstage, I talked about tension and the negative feedback loop. So you can refer to that video. But this idea, it's a negative feedback loop. So the less we trust, the more we try to force and control, the worse we sound. And then we trust even less, we push even more, we sound even worse, and etc. The feedback loop goes, it's a vortex, it's really hard to break. So changing the words that we use to direct ourselves around our breath support, it interrupts that feedback loop. It has a really great track record of being able to be a pattern interrupt and get you on the track that you need to be on. So without further ado, let me tell you what these words are. And thank you to our Backstage moderator for putting in the chat the video on tension and fear and that feedback loop, so you can reference it in the chat. Okay, so let's talk about what are these 3 words. The first word is let. Most specifically, let the breath come in instead of take a breath. Okay, so I hate the phrase take a breath because it implies a doing, a violence, right? I'm taking something, I'm grabbing it. And you saw what it looked like when I just took the breath. I took it and I grabbed it right here. And what that does is you actually get less air when you are grabbing and taking and trying to pull air into your body, because your body's trying to help you take the air in. And the way that it does that is all of the muscles around the neck and around the trachea grab. And so they actually close around the trachea, make the windpipe smaller. So you actually get less air than if you would just let the breath come in. So this idea of let, you guys, your body knows how to breathe. It knows how to breathe. You do it every day. And the laws of physics will support the fact that you do not have to help air come into your body. Okay? It's law of equilibrium. It's high school physics, if any of you remember it. When the air pressure on one side of a membrane is different than the air pressure on the other side of the membrane, it wants to equalize. It wants to, osmosis, travel through the membrane. It wants to equalize. So by the same token, when the air pressure inside our lungs is different than the air pressure outside of the body in the room, because it's time for us to breathe, we don't have to help the air come into our body. The air wants to be in our lungs. The pressure wants to equalize. So you do not have to take the breath. You do not have to grab or help this air come in any way. Your one job on the inhale is to release and let the air come in. And this fosters trust around the inhale. Trust that we know how to breathe and we can let go and we will get plenty of air. You'll get more air doing it this way than if you try to take the breath for those reasons I just mentioned. So trust and that reminder that inhale is a release. The word let has a totally different energetic connotation than take, right? Let, when we let the breath come in, we're opening our body, we're releasing our body. Release the belly, release the ribs, release the throat, release the jaw. Just let everything release and open up, and the air comes in. It will come in every single time if you release and let it. And you'll get plenty of air. Instead of this idea that you need to tank up, right? The idea that you need to tank up is rooted in insecurity. It comes from insecurity that I'm not going to have enough and then I'm going to run out. So I need to tank up and I need to take a lot more. But the irony of that is, you guys, is that when you're tanking up, it actually results in less air and more tension, both of which are not going to serve you for the ultimate phrase that you want to sing. So let the breath come in. All right, so that's the first one. The second one is the word flex. Okay, so we're talking about the word flex when it comes to the muscles of support. So what we want is we want to flex the muscles of support rather than contract the muscles of support. So I know from the many, many singers that I've worked with over the last 20 some odd years, that unfortunately, there's a huge misconception about what the muscles in the abdomen and the lower back are supposed to be doing when you make sound. So I'm not talking about the inhale now. I'm talking about what's happening when you're actually phonating. And unfortunately, I think that there are instructors out there who also maybe don't have the most efficient idea of what this is, and they are teaching you guys to contract. And there's a very different, that's directionally different. Contract is pulling in, flex is expanding out, right? I am flexing the muscles in my hand. I am contracting the muscles of my hand. Both are engaging the muscles of the hand, but in two different ways, directionally. So when we think about the muscles of support that we want to engage when we go to phonate and we go to sing and make sound, we always want to flex those muscles rather than contract those muscles. So what often that looks like is, let's see if I can stand up, I can show you. You know, if you're contracting the muscles of support, you're doing this when you sing, ah, this way, okay? And that's totally inefficient, because when you do that, you're pushing in with the muscles, which pushes the diaphragm up, which pushes way too much air out of the lungs. So you're out of breath before you want to be. Odds are it's an airier sound. And if you don't want it to be an airy sound, then what you're going to do is you're going to clamp up here to create a dam to prevent all that extra air from flowing out. So now you're going to have a lot of tension. So contracting the muscles of support in leads to an airy sound, out of breath before you want to be, and a lot of tension. So don't do it. It's inefficient, okay? So rather than pulling these muscles in, you want to gently lean on them, almost in a way that you were like, if you were pooping ever so gently, you're going to flex them outwards. So if you can see, me contracting goes this way. Ah, me flexing just kind of helps me keep the shape of my container. Ah, I don't go this way. I keep the integrity of that shape that I'm creating. So, you know, there's a lot of nuance to this, and this is what, you know, your private voice teachers can work with you on. This is what I work with my singers on, you know, is identifying and making sure that you're actually doing it right. But at the very least, understand the difference between contracting those muscles in versus flexing and leaning on them. It's in Italian classical singing, and I'm a classically trained singer by trade. We call it appoggio in Italian, which literally means to lean. Like if you speak Spanish, apoyar, it's the same root in the Latin. Appoggio, to lean. That's the same feeling as flex versus to contract, okay? So when we are flexing the muscles of support, it allows trust that our body is designed to make sound using very little air. You guys, you don't need to contract in to push up to get the air up and out to push out that sound, okay? It does not take a lot of air to sing. And most of you flood, okay? You flood, you're sending way too much air up and out. And it's getting you into all kinds of trouble. We need a very, very narrow, very steady stream. It's just the idea of the muscles of support are to create the exact right volume of air, meaning amount, and the exact right velocity of air, meaning speed, okay? It is not a giant wave. It is, you know, there's a technique that a lot of us are using right now called straw singing. And so if you think about how narrow, you know, the hole of a straw is, right? You don't need a whole lot of air. If you're going to end up giving so much air that you blow the straw out of your mouth, it's too much. So I mean, I'm not going to get into straw singing. That's a whole nother thing and a whole nother technique, but feel free to research it. It's fascinating. But idea here is when we flex the muscles of support, we are trusting our body is designed to make sound using very little air, because that flex is designed to keep the diaphragm low and moving slow, which gives us the exact right amount of air, which is not a whole lot, okay? So flex the muscles of support, don't contract them. So that's the second idea, the second word. Okay, the last word is the word implode. This one's my favorite. Implode. I'm telling the singers in my intensive program all the time, implode the sound, drink it in, implode it like a firework going off out the back of your head, right? So here's why this is important and why this works. Most people have this idea that they have to get the sound out, that they have to explode the sound out and they have to get it out of their body to the audience, all right? But when we do that, we are right back into make, force, do, push, manipulate, and it sabotages the body's efficient design for making sound. You guys, your bodies were made to make resonant sound. If you think about an infant can cry and cry and cry at the top of their lungs and they never get hoarse and they never get tired, and it is the most present, resonant sound. I mean, I remember when my daughter was 4 months old, 5 months old, and babies can do that because we were all born with that Mother Nature's most effective production of sound, okay? But as we get older and we start to sing, we stop trusting that and we think we need to do all these other things, and we get all up in there and we get in the way and it sabotages it. And so when we are, when we have this idea that we have to get the sound out, we stop trusting this efficient design that we were all born with. And it takes us, when we don't trust, we feel like we have to do something else. And so that puts us right back into, push, force, do, manipulate. And the sound suffers. It creates tension and strain and contributes to vocal injury. So that's why the idea of implode is so very important. When we implode the sound, we are fostering trust in our bodies and our instruments that we are enough. Our sound is enough. Our instrument is enough. We don't have to force it or make it or push it. There's no need to explode because there is nothing to prove. You have everything you need. You were born with it. But without that trust, you're going to do things that sabotage it, and then you're not going to get to use that. And this is something that I talk about all the time with the singers in my intensive, is this idea of trust. Remember, at the very beginning of this live, I talked about mind and body. The mind will sabotage the body if it is not addressed. So these words are to help you to get your head screwed on right around how you're thinking about and relating to your singing, okay? There is no need to explode the sound because there is nothing to prove. When we feel like we have something to prove, when we go into that audition and we feel like we have to, prove that we're worthy and prove that we're not going to fail and prove, our mom, right, who told us that, that this was not a real job and you're never going to make it. So now we're not just trying to prove that, we're good enough to get the gig, but we're trying to prove that we're good enough to actually prove it to our mom that we could do this. It's the mind, you guys, goes to all these places that causes you to stop trusting your body's efficient design and to feel like you need to get up in there and explode it and show it. I used to have this voice teacher who used to say to me, don't show me your beautiful sound. Don't show me your beautiful voice. Just vibrate. Just vibrate, okay? No need to explode the sound because there's nothing to prove. We are more efficient with our support and our air because we're not sabotaging to push when we think implode. When we think implode, we trust what we have. And so we naturally lean into this flex feeling that I was just talking about. So I'm looking at some of the comments here. I don't understand. So Sarah's saying, I don't understand the concept of imploding. What is actually happening? Okay. It's an imaginary concept. It's an energetic idea. Okay. If I told you, okay, the high note's coming now, you need to explode that high note. Oh yeah, you are going to explode it. You're going to contract and you're going to push up and you're going to blam that high note, and it's going to kill the resonance. It's going to kill your support. It's going to kill your stamina, and you're going to be dead in the water before you've even gotten to the next section of the song. Versus if I say you need to implode that high note, right? It's an energetic idea. It keeps you from bleh with your air and bleh with your support because you don't have to get anything out anymore. Your job isn't to get anything out. Your job is to actually draw in the energy, energetically speaking. It's imaginary. It's not that it's imaginary, it's visualization. It's a visualization of an idea or a concept to switch the energy, to change the energy around so that you're not this, instead you're owning your space and you're bringing the sound to you. You're bringing the audience to you. You're bringing the energy to you. If it's imploded, it's coming towards you and you just get to receive it. That's a very different energy to bring to making sound than feeling that you have to push it out. So I hope that answers what I was saying. Let's see. Works for your speaking voice also, correct? Yes, Bob, it does. You know, I would say, so I am not an expert in voice and speech for stage. There are many people who are way more expert at that than I am. But I would imagine that you will get a lot less tired and a lot less fatigued over the duration of a show if you are feeling like you're imploding, if you're feeling like you're bringing the audience and the sound to you rather than feeling like you need to push it out there. So my guess is yes, that it will absolutely work for speech too. So these three words, these three words, let, flex, implode, they're all examples of how changing your thinking changes your singing. And when you give your mind new ways to communicate with your body around your technique, because you're changing the words, it's amazing how the singing will change. In changing the way we think about the inhale, by changing the words we use to direct ourselves when we breathe in, by thinking let, it begins to foster trust. Trust that our bodies know how to breathe. Trust that we can let go and make space and release and let air fill our lungs, and that we will get plenty of air and we don't need to help it, rather than needing to tank up, which actually leads to, results in less air and more tension in the body. And when we think flex the muscles of support, we trust that our body is designed to make sound using very little air, and that we don't need to contract inwards to push the air up and out to make a good sound. And when we think implode, we trust that we are enough. We're owning our space and we're bringing the audience to us. And there's no need to explode the sound because we don't have anything to prove. There's nothing we have to get out. And with that trust, we're just so much more efficient with our support and our air, and we're not energetically being blocked from that free flow at the end of the day that we need in order to make an impact with our audience. So these are three examples of how changing our thinking changes our singing. And when you give your mind these new ways of communicating with your instrument around your technique and your singing, then everything will change. The way that you are producing sound, the way you show up in auditions. And when you do that, then your career gets to that next level. So if this approach resonates with you guys, hit me in the comments. I will do my best to support you. You can also find all my columns on vocal technique and mindset and performing tools for singers on backstage.com. And I invite you to explore my own YouTube channel on here for a ton of content for singers. And I also have a free Facebook group called the Pro Singer Success Collective, where I go live each week on a variety of topics. So both of the links to connect to me here on YouTube and also on Facebook are below in the About section under this video. So let me see if I have any other questions. How can you be strong in your stomach and avoid contracting? Because, like I said, there's two definitions of engaging the muscle. You take your hand out. You can be strong in contracting this way, or you can be strong in flexing that way. Strength has nothing to do with it. It's directional. Are you pulling up and in, or are you flexing out that way? So doesn't have anything to do with strength. You can be strong in either way. So one just happens to be more efficient for the sound that you want to make. What other questions do we have? Are the abs the only muscles that need to be flexed? Well, so no. There's some other muscles that go along. So we're talking about six pack. So rectus abdominis, obliques, transverse abdominis, and then like lower back, like here, these muscles here. Those are the ones that are primarily involved. And then also intercostal muscles, which are the muscles between the ribs. They do flex naturally if you're being buoyant in your ribs, but primarily when we're talking about engaging support to phonate, we're primarily talking about this container, what I call the container of support, which are those 3 different sets of abs and the muscles down in the lower back. So yeah, that's what we're primarily talking about. Let's see. All right, you guys. Well, if you have any other questions, you can hit me on Facebook, or you can hit me on my own YouTube here. So it's been a pleasure to be able to come on and give you guys a little training today. Stay safe, and I'm happy to support any of you who need it. All right, you guys, take care.